Welcome back. We're now at our panel portion of the show, and we are joined by 3 additional people. We have Darnell Moore, senior correspondent at Mike. We have Edwin Raymond, a New York City police officer who is currently involved in a class action lawsuit against the NYPD. We're going to get into that. And of course, recording artist Vic Mensa, and I'm Baratunde Thurston. Welcome to the tables, men.
Peace. Thank you.
So I just want to point out, we're here to talk about policing. We have 4 black men talking about policing, including 1 police officer. So I really appreciate you being here with us.
Absolutely.
And, I want to start with a group kind of tag in on first experiences with police. What do you remember as your first run-ins with that version of the law?
I was 17, and I grew up in Camden, New Jersey, walking home, sunlight. It was 3 p.m., like around 3:30 p.m. After school. And the black police officer mistook me for what they call a lookout boy. So these are people that would holler like po-po when the cops would come and to inform the drug dealers that they were coming. Anyway, he didn't read me my Miranda rights. He twisted my arm behind my back, threw me against a brick wall, put me in a car, and drove off. At the time, I was a student in a program called Institute for Political and Legal Education, so I knew.
But he didn't know you were part of that institute. Oops.
So I knew when he did not read me my Miranda rights that this would be a case that could be not pursued. And this was a black police officer that did this in a black community. So, and I had watched my friends and my family members experience similar things, and that shaped my perception of law enforcement in my neighborhood ever since.
Edwin?
All right, I think I was about maybe 15 or 16. And in New York, born and raised, grew up in Brooklyn, still live in Brooklyn. In New York, it was called Operation Impact, where rookie officers would basically hit the ground running, and they would have to write as many summonses, get as many stop and frisk, and arrest as many people as possible. So at 15, just kept getting stopped. And it was just 90% of the stops were unprofessional. You know, they kind of sized us up and thought they knew everything about us because of where we lived and how we looked. And this actually was part of the reason why I decided to join the police force. I decided, I need to join this thing and see what I can do from the inside.
How about you, Vic?
My first experience with police was in like 6th grade when I was like 11. I was tagging a trash can in an alley behind my school, and one of the teachers saw me. I was getting in trouble. I thought I'd, probably get detention or something. And then they had this police officer come in and like write me a police report. And
like a formal actual
yeah, like
police
a formal
report,
police report, like before I got suspended. But I just remember being a small kid and seeing how they tell us that we're criminals from a young age,
I'm gonna break the pattern a little bit. My first experience with police, I grew up in Washington, D.C. in the Columbia Heights neighborhood in the 80s, which was going through everything that all of our cities have gone through. And there was a domestic violence dispute next door. And there was a beat cop named Officer Bonnie. And Officer Bonnie was just like, she was bad, man. She was like a badass officer. And I remember looking out my front window and seeing her with 2 chrome guns pointed at someone like, come out with your hands up, motherfucker. There would be later in different images, and I would have horror stories from friends, much more than my own experience. But my first story was a really, really tough lady with 2 guns drawn trying to help the family next door out. Yeah. Edwin, I want to come back to your story because you talked about your experience leading you to join the force. Now you are still employed by the New York Police Department while also engaged in a lawsuit against the police department. But please tell us what's going on. I don't know that many people employed by people they're also suing.
Yeah, so in the police academy, I was looking for what was wrong. I was looking at the fine print to where it says to racially profile. And, everything that we were experiencing in our neighborhoods, I was looking for where it's written to see where I can try to erase it.
You thought it'd be that simple?
Yeah, and
oh, you just got to edit the document.
Quickly erase that. And, I learned shockingly that the academy is actually really good training. If the training was being properly applied, we wouldn't have this issue in the United States. The thing is, and I said this before, the white communities get that stuff, that everything in the manual, they get that policing. We get something completely different. We get a backdoor, unwritten, de facto policy. So, but I still didn't know what it was until my first day on patrol. Your objective is to get us arrests and summonses and stop and frisk. That's it. Nothing about community interaction, nothing about all of the hats that a police officer is supposed to wear, none of it. Just arrest, summonses, and stop and frisk. So on day one, I figured, okay, they just want us to know how to do these things, but then day two was the same thing. Day three, day four. That's when I realized, wow, this was it the whole time. This was what was going on when I was 15. These officers were just trying to meet their quota. So yeah, you have the racist, the bigoted officer, the bigoted individual who becomes an officer. You have that as an issue, but one discussion that's never enough is the systemic, the systemic issues in policing, the stuff that's deeply embedded.
But the enforcement is not distributed evenly. So in terms of that level of accountability, it's like, yo, why aren't we like raiding frat houses in the same way that we're raiding the projects? So let's get to the other side of this injustice, which is restoring some form of justice. Darnell, what are you finding in your reporting, in your activism, in the communities of people trying to make this not be the case? What's on the table as far as like how to bring more accountability to this behavior, how to solve this problem?
The first thing I think, we have only thought about safety as a thing that one can achieve through policing. What does it mean to keep our community safe, our people safe, without having to overly rely on a law enforcement structure that is systemically problematic in the first place? So that policing is used to try to attempt to manage a range of things that law enforcement cannot fix. Issues like homelessness, issues like economic disenfranchisement that leads to alternative economies like drug sales, can't be resolved by policing. So one of the areas that the organizers are focusing on in New York is pushing the government to defund or to decrease funding in policing and invest money in other areas like educational initiatives, like mental health responses. The other thing, though, is these other issues you bring about. I mean, we haven't even talked about police unions in a way that police unions and benevolence associations shore up officers and protect officers. But beyond individual officers, there's a culture here, right? There's a culture that says, like, once you're in this brotherhood, in this society, you can't speak up when folk are doing bad shit.
What was going through your head when you heard him describing his experience of just like, this is how you police, right? Day one, do this. Day four, do the same thing. The incentive structure. How did that reflect against your own experience that you and I were talking about?
I mean, it makes perfect sense, but what I thought was interesting about what you were just saying was how careful they seem to be, like, with their verbiage, and keeping things unspoken but understood. I think that it's necessary and also very intelligent what you did to go in and start looking for, cracks in the ceiling, because there's no way that we can solve this problem strictly from being on the outside. I think it's a major issue that the majority of policing, inner city neighborhoods don't live in those neighborhoods, and they have no contact with those neighborhoods other than when they get called to the scene of a crime. I feel as if we need elected police review organizations that are prosecuting these cops, because there's no possible way that every one of these shooters was innocent, It doesn't make sense.
So Edwin, this is something I've been dying to actually talk with a real life police officer about. We're hearing all this, demands for pensions to be taken away, allegations of murder, all this video footage, like, do you as a police officer feel besieged? Do you ever feel like the public doesn't understand? That we are too quick to judge, that we don't sympathize with how hard it is to pull the trigger or not pull the trigger? Like, where do you sit in this spectrum of sympathy for the public outrage, but also you're inside and you have been given a job to do and you're asked to patrol some tough spots?
Understood. Yeah, that's a good question, man. It's a tough job. One of the things people vicariously learn. So a lot of what people think they know about policing comes from TV. It's a writer's imagination. That's not policy, that's not realistic. Like, what happens when someone gets shot, for instance? you know, prior to becoming a police officer, I thought you fly back 6 feet, you know? Yet in the academy, I saw videos of people getting shot that kept coming. Like, it's not what you think. When it comes to holding cops accountable, the one thing that's bigger than, you know, bad policy or inherently racist policy is implicit bias. It's real. I mean, this isn't something that's exclusive to policing. This is an American issue, this idea that the four of us are automatically criminals without actually committing crimes. You know, this is what, when the cops are responding to jobs and they see us, this is what they see first, a criminal. You know, so they already start at level 10.
Yeah, they're primed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and this is, the thing is, again, this is something that's exacerbated when you become a police officer, but it doesn't start with policing. It starts with American culture. This is part of living in the US. Whether you're white or black, we're all gonna, unfortunately, have these implicit biases, but it's up to us to know that they're not based on facts. You know, they're based on American culture that's demonized us for 400 years, you know. That
was a beautiful answer, and I thank you for a lot of what I observe. And you know, we've had these moments of, occasionally in all this heat, we've had moments of crossover, moments of healing. I think you embody a lot of this tension and this challenge, like in your work. And I do want you to say, what's the name of the lawsuit and how people
it's
find
I don't know about that.
Raymond versus the city of New York. I'm the lead plaintiff. Yeah, that's crazy, right?
That is so G.
That shit is gangster. That's an album
That's a
title.
movie, right? Exactly.
That's an album title for real.
Yeah.
From speaking out against the lawsuit, against the quotas, our First Amendment rights were violated. So we're definitely suing for that. 14th Amendment, you know, equal protection under the law, both for us as police officers who spoke out and for you, because if white folks aren't being, you know, arrested and summoned for the same behavior on one part of time and you do it and you're getting arrested and summoned, they're violating your 14th Amendment.
Officer Raymond.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Listen, it's for
Thank
you,
you
brother.
so much.
I'm not worried about myself. It's for
Yeah.
you. It's for everybody here.
Yeah.
You should be able to fly in from Chi-Town and not get profiled. You know, your celebrity status shouldn't even have to be mentioned for you to be treated like a man. You understand? And likewise, you should be able to walk the streets, and until you do something that, you know, something serious that deserves police response, you should be able to live.
Yeah, whether it's tagging a dumpster out back of your school or walking down the street. Thank you, Darnell. Thank you, Edwin. Thank you, Vic. This has been not enough. There's never enough time, but I appreciate this fellowship.
I come back anytime, man.
All right.
Love.
Thanks, y'all.